diving into creation energy today and what that looks like and how we can cultivate it and start getting it to show up more in our life. Because as soon as I kind of talk about creation energy and what that can do for you, you might see ways in why you would want it to show up more, why it would be valuable for you to have that in your life, why it might be important to have that part in your life. So before we go into creation, I just want to do a brief overview of Prove, just so that we can kind of compare the two, because they're pretty much one side or the other. And like I said, Prove energy isn't bad. It's our motherboard. It is our fault safe system so that we keep ourselves safe. It's designed to do that. It just cannot serve us sometimes if we put it on autopilot and we just decide for that to kind of be our go-to, which does get easy, right? We looked at the motivational triad, and it does get easy to go into Prove energy because we feel safe and secure there. So we just want to stay there. And that is obviously a feeling we can start to have based on a thought we're having about a circumstance. Because remember, we talked about that. So the thought we're having is going to generate an emotion we have in our body and how we show up in the world. So let's dive into this Prove energy. So on Prove, we have the have, do, be. That means once I have whatever it is that you need, like you feel like you need to have something, then I can do, like, once I have my house is clean, once I have the perfect job, once my husband does this, once my kids start doing that, right? Once my kids are gone, once I'm at this age. So we have this idea that this other future something is going to be better than what we have now. So we have this thought that, well, once I have this, then I'll be able to do these things. Like I'll be able to do the activities I want to do. I'll be able to go out and I'll have more time on my hands. Like, so we have this thought that once we have these things that we'll be able to do, and then I'll be happy. Then I'll have arrived. Then I'll be content with myself. Then I'll find peace. So have, do, be energy is that Prove energy. It makes us believe that it kind of keeps us stuck because we think, well, I can't do that yet until I have this. And sometimes we have wonderful excuses. Sometimes we have really, I mean, there's good, valid stuff there. And my question that I ask myself when I do that to myself, because I'll find myself doing that, is I'll say, but is that what I want? If I keep on believing that that's where I'm at, I'm going to keep on getting what I've always got. So I have to stop and ask myself, okay, if I'm giving an excuse I don't have enough time, if I'm giving an excuse that I have other things that are more important, if I'm giving myself, it's not saying that those aren't there, but it's stepping back and going, okay, is that where I want to spend my time? Is that what I want to do with my, is that getting me closer to what it is that I actually want? Is this productive? Is it, you know, is it helping me in a sense that I feel like that's what I need to achieve, or that's what I'm looking for? Is it kind of setting, is there a value aligned to it? Is it a priority that, you know, might need to be shifted? And one of the things to really look for when that stuff kind of comes up for us, when we start to find ourselves using excuses of why we can't do something, is to explore it and say, okay, so if this barrier was gone, would I be able to go forward? What do I have to do? What's my strategy to get over this obstacle that I'm having? And how can I get to the other side of it? Because this is what I do want. This is what I am looking for. What kind of thoughts do I need to have in order to break through this? What are the thoughts that are going to serve me so that I'll show up in a way that'll help me get through this? And those are kind of sort of the things that we start to stop and question ourselves, and we start to engage actually in creation energy, because we are deciding that this have, do, be process isn't helping us. So we want to step into something else. And then we have that scarcity thinking, right? So we think, well, I don't have everything I need, so I can't do this. So we believe that because we don't have the time we don't have the money that we need, I can't do these things. Using the past as proof to why we can't do something, right? Well, I don't have enough time. I'm so busy with, you know, I'll never be able to get to this. It just always seems like it's last on my list. Those types of thoughts we are having are creating our reality, are creating what we want. And it's when we start to switch it and start to go into creation mode of being exact of what we want and believing that we're going to get it. right? The key is that we believe we're going to get it. We are going to obtain that. So we go into creation energy. And so right off the bat, right, in creation energy, we have be, do, have. So these guys switched. And they switched because in order to have what you really want, you need to believe that you are being who you need to be. So until you believe that, and until you cultivate the belief of that, and you attach a thought to something that resonates with you. Like we talked yesterday, I think I talked yesterday a little bit about like affirmations and the idea that with affirmations, there's nothing wrong with them, but we need to really attach how we say and word it in the way that resonates to us. Because if it doesn't resonate to us, then it's not going to generate authenticity to it. And we're always going to have that little bit of disbelief that kind of hums around in our brain. You know, because if somebody gives you some good words or a good affirmation, you think, okay, you're focused so much on, I just need to believe this affirmation instead of like reading it going, wow, this is me. I believe this affirmation. It's completely who I am. Or I believe this thought. This thought is exactly who I am. I'm no other. This is it. And when we start to resonate with that, then we're coming from an authentic place of who we believe we are and who we are becoming. And then we do things based on that. So when you believe this is who you're becoming, you believe this is who you are, you're actually choosing to be future focused. You are seeing yourself as this person in the future, and you are coming out as that person. And what's fascinating is there's a word that gets thrown around in our society called imposter syndrome and thinking that, well, you can't just believe in, and this is what I've thought about before, is that we actually can believe whatever we want to believe. People outside of us can say that it's wrong or that it's right, because everybody's going to have different views on it. But when you come from a place that you believe, like whatever your right or wrong is for yourself, and then you're stemming from that, you believing it doesn't mean that you're an imposter, that it means you just haven't accomplished it yet. That's not an imposter. That's like someone who's going to build a beautiful home. What, they're not a builder because the home's not done? No, they're building the home. They are a builder. There's no question that they are. And we use it as evidence against ourselves because something's not finished or something's not complete or we're not done with this, that we're not that yet. And we can choose to look at it and go, I put these blocks down today, or I went outside and picked a few weeds. I'm a gardener. You can believe that you're a gardener. There are different scales of a gardener, sure. And maybe you're working towards a scale and you can believe that you are becoming a master gardener, right? It doesn't mean that you're saying that or every day I'm getting closer. I'm learning more about what I'm doing. So we are becoming, and we want to keep, it seems like we'll want to pick out, and we kind of do the comparison thing where we say, well, this person's, not lining up with what they should be doing. And the interesting thing is that when we get into that comparison, we're then stuck in that prove energy. We go into that comparison and we're just like, oh, we're trying to, bid against somebody instead of realizing that we're all just trying to grow and go forward, which is creation energy. When we start to applaud people from an authentic place that we believe that they are doing a wonderful thing, and we show up that way, and we create that energy within our environment of showing the things that we believe in instead of downplaying everything we don't believe in. Because the energy, it's one thing I've learned from someone, I can't remember who quoted this, but it's a certain kind of quote, is the way that you show up when you disagree with somebody says more about yourself than them. So if somebody's saying things you don't agree with and you're showing up in a certain way, if you show up in a way that is argumentative, is frustrated, is angry, is trying to point or prove something, that shows more about you than it ever will about them. And then the way that they react back to you, again, shows more about them than it does about you. And so trying to find that balance and realizing that you give other people their space to be them and I get to be me. And then I choose to live in creation mode. I choose to think thoughts that I am believing, that I'm becoming, that I am starting to do, that it's coming my way. It's already coming to me. I'm going to be receiving this. You just believe those things. And if you really truly kind of align yourself to believe them, then you start doing what you need to do, and then you will have it. You don't just wait to have it, right? The opposite. You be, do, have. You believe you are a being. You are who you need to be, and you believe it, and you're becoming it. And that's where you begin instead of beginning at once I have. Because the once I have is the to-do list, is all these actions you think you have to do in order to get going. When in reality, you have to just align your thoughts with what you want. So you will get going based on who you are, not what you think you need to have. And then you have it. Hope that makes sense. All right. And then obviously, when you're coming from that sense of being with creation, you're coming from abundant thinking. You're believing you already have what you need. It's coming your way. I don't have to worry about it. Now, the fascinating thing about this is that, and just like anything else, right, there's always exceptions to the rule, or people can make it their own way and believe it this way. I choose, for me personally, like if somebody is believing that abundantly thinking, that, well, I'm just going to sit here and wait because I just know it's all going to come. My thought is, I believe that God gave us a body to move and work and do stuff because he wants us to grow. He doesn't just say, here's your loaf of bread. I'm just going to feed you of whatever you need. I believe he's provided with everything we need. We start doing the work because that's part of our growth process. That's where we start to become the creators he wants us to be. He's like, I want you to create things. I want you to create Zoom. I want you to create a car, an airplane. I want you to create these things and do so, knowing that I created you, that you are creation from me, that I've given you this talent, this skill, and this is what you're choosing. These are the talents you're showing. This is how you're showing up in the world. And that's my belief. That's my alignment with my higher power. But for me, it's God. For everybody gets to choose what that is. But I believe that we all need to have a higher something in our life, because we need to realize that we didn't just show up here and take over all this, that there was things that already existed before we existed. And that it is important to align yourself and realize that the things that you create and do, that talent, what you've been given, comes from something so much more. And when you go out there and you start to struggle, or you start to strive, I guess struggle, we don't want to say that, but you could say that, but you start to strive and you start to become more of what you believe you're capable of, and you show your talents and you show your light to the world, and people are now seeing you, and you are choosing a platform, and you are doing nothing but uplifting people and saying, come here, come and see what I have to offer. When you start to do that, and in your relationships, then you start to gravitate relationships that really matter to you, that are the reason for you becoming more and for your connection with them to be deeper and more meaningful. And that happens when we decide to think abundantly, be who we believe we're becoming, and flow with that energy, realizing there's going to be hiccups, right? The prove energy is going to offer us things, and we're going to say, oh, thank you for that information. This is what I'm doing. Thank you for that. Now this is what I'm doing. And it shows that you become kind of the master of your thoughts. You've decided that this is what I'm putting in. I realize I'm going to be offered all this information that's not overly useful. Some of it is. Some of it I need to pay attention to. Some of it is, stop, don't run in front of that car. Like, that stuff we need to pay attention to. We don't need to psychologically try to think of something different, right? Those are certain things that are needed. And that's why we have that prove energy. So it serves its purpose. But then there's other things that are fearful and scary. And it's like, okay, what is it I want to believe from this? How do I want to use this to my advantage? How do I want to spend my life? one of my favorite sayings is that, people say, you live only once. The truth is you die only once. You live every day. How do you want to live your days? How do you want to show up in the world? It's all part of that creation. When you step into it, it feels so different. It feels like a clean energy. It feels like a flowing energy. It feels just this joy, this inner joy that just kind of comes from within and just spreads around. And you don't have to overly protect it or shield it. You realize that proof energy is going to come up. You realize people are going to have their opinions. You realize those things are going to happen, and you let them happen. You don't need to always respond to them. You can let people be people, and it's okay. They are allowed to. They're on their own journey. Sometimes we say things, sometimes we don't say things. But most of the time when we say things, we say it out of respect and love for them, but then mostly for ourselves. Because if we respect ourselves, we show up in a way that respects others as well. So we just kind of flow along. We don't try to prove anything. We just let it flow. And that's that flow. And again, because you're believing that you're becoming, it's that future thinking. You have decided that the past has served its purpose as a learning tool. As what was I supposed to learn from this? What have I learned from this? What am I going to do to move forward? How can I use this to my advantage? And when we start having those thoughts, we start to cultivate this creation energy in our lives. And it just starts to grow and amplifies and becomes more and more and more. And so the more that we do that, the more we are focused on actually creating, the less all the other stuff it's going to come, right? It's not going to stop. Just because you're in creation mode doesn't mean that everything stops. Just because you're practicing being in B mode that you're becoming doesn't mean that it all of a sudden becomes easier. It just means your focus on what it is you're creating becomes stronger, and you put more effort and energy into it so that it expands, and you do it in a way that is a belief that what you have to offer is important, that you want to be a part of, the way you want to be. And so that is part of that whole creation and just flowing into it. So one of the things that I like to say when we are working, because we talked about, right, the prove and unintentional model and sitting in awareness. And so that unintentional model is the tool we use to start to create awareness around our thinking. And as we sit in awareness, we decide, again, using that past as fuel for our future. We're actually using it and saying, okay, what have I learned from this? What am I going to go forward? How do I want to show up in this world? What do I'm going to start to believe? What thoughts am I thinking that I believe that I know I really don't believe? It's just habit. So what are my new thoughts I want to have? And like I said before, we don't jump from I hate who I am. Let's just say it's that, right? I hate who I am to I love myself. We don't just jump from that. That doesn't just happen. It's not like magical. Like all of a sudden I think a better thought and that just happens. What happens is we go from here, I hate, and we go, well, I'm a human being, and human beings are important somehow, maybe, right? So maybe that's the first, right? From I hate myself to what is it about you that you can just begin to start to cultivate something that will help you get into creation mode and help you step out of proving, because saying like, right, I hate myself, I'm no good, I'm not, you're kind of stuck in that trying to find evidence of why you can't be great. And you could step out of that and go into creation, go, no, this is my evidence that I need. This is where I can start to believe. I can just start to cultivate a thought and attach it to emotion that resonates with me. And when you start to kind of, you kind of wobble in that area a little bit, instead of going way to the, shame and pride extremes, you can kind of wobble back and forth a little bit, and that's okay. But you kind of find that grounding for yourself. You kind of start to ground yourself, and you see that I can start to create thoughts that are going to serve me. I can start to attach them to emotions that I want to feel on the regular. And then I will start to do actions that really show who I am. I don't have to keep on trying to change my actions in order to create the result I want. What I could do is change my thoughts about things that are coming up in my life and start believing that this is who I am and start taking ownership of it in a way that is just loving and caring, respectful, trusting, right? These feelings you want, integrity within, being honest with yourself and others. This emotion you want to experience so that you feel like you're there and you are creating that. And that's what, I want to help people see that they can start to create that if that is the way that they want to do it. I believe that, right? Everybody gets to make their own choices on how they want to do that. But when it comes to creating that inner peace, really, truly becoming a peacemaker, not a people pleaser, right? A people pleaser is nothing but somebody that's completely dishonest with themselves because they haven't decided what they believe. They attach to what everybody else believes. Instead of attaching to anybody, how about just decide what you want to believe, how you want to show up, what you're here to create? What is it? What are you contributing, to society? What is it you want to start doing? Not what everybody else is doing, because everything out here, we have no control over, and it's okay. I don't want control over it. I can barely control myself. I want no control over this. Absolutely not. But I want to learn how to control my own thoughts and the way I show up. Because when I start to do that, I take ownership of my emotions. And then I start to show up and I can start to cultivate relationships that matter to me based on emotions that meet my needs, because I meet my needs first. I decide that I'm important. I've decided that these are things I'm doing. There are sometimes things that my husband wants to do and I don't want to do it. And it's funny nowadays when I don't feel guilty. Before I used to feel guilty, like something was wrong with me. I should be able to want to do everything my husband wants to do. But now I'm in a spot where that sounds like you're going to have fun doing that, hon. You enjoy that. And I truly mean it. And he asked me if I want to go. I'm like, I don't want to go this time, but thank you for asking. I really appreciate it. I don't feel guilty about it. And I say it in a way that's nice and loving and just from caring and respectful. It's respectful for him and me. And there's sometimes that I go with him because it's you know what? I do want to go. I want to go and enjoy time with him. Doesn't mean that I'll enjoy where we're going sometimes, and that's okay. But I've just chosen I want to enjoy time with him. So that's what I'm doing. And don't get resentful after. I don't be like, well, I went with you that one time. You should go with me. No, I chose to go. It's my choosing. So when we start to take ownership of how we're showing up, we start to create relationships that are respectful and realizing sometimes the person on the other side isn't going to feel the same way you do. They're not doing mind management. They're not trying to take care of themselves that way. That's not for them. But then the way you show up is what's important to the relationship. And that's how you cultivate and start to create what it is you want in your life.